Vernon, this year alone, or in January this year alone, we bought £9.5 billion more goods from the European Union than we sold. So, realistically, do you think it's, that we're not going to be like the Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova being part of a free trade area that embraces the EU countries?
Yeah, but as I said, the truth of it is, I'm not one of those who says there'll be a complete end to any movement of goods. Outside of, if the UK was outside the EU. My argument is that we're better within the EU. And of course, as I say, what Owen doesn't, Owen just says, oh, don't worry, if we leave the EU, it'll be fine. Nothing will change. All the people will be able to move around and all the goods will be able to move around and everybody will be doing exactly the same as they did before. And the evidence is that you look at every single country that's not in the EU, what do they have to do? They have to negotiate agreements with the EU to get access to their markets. And they have to abide by exactly the same regulations, rules, and pay into the EU that Owen doesn't want us to do. He says, oh, we've got to get rid of all these regulations. We've got to get rid of all of this money that we're paying into the EU. Every single country that has a trade agreement with the EU, in order to gain access to the markets, has to adopt those very same rules and pay into that very same budget. And that's the truth of it. It'll be all right on the night. The idea that the Republic of the border between the Republic and Northern Ireland, there will be no difference, there will be no change. The idea is oh well, don't worry, it'll be okay. As I say, the border becomes a border between the EU and the UK. And I'm not saying, as I said in the remarks I made at the beginning, I'm not saying it will go back to the bad old days, but the idea there would be no consequence for that is, I'm afraid, just not going to be the case. There will have to be some sort of look at what happens as goods move across that border, because it will be goods from the EU into the UK and people moving from the Republic into the UK. There would have to be, because that would be...
Owen's busting to get back.
I'm sure he is. Because he won't agree with what I said.
No, I don't agree with a word of it.
No, I didn't agree with a word of what you said.
The United States of America is not part of the European Union. It has increased its exports to the EU faster than the United Kingdom, which is a member of the European Union, and it doesn't pay a penny.
It'll be all right on the night, Owen.
And it does not pay a penny.
It'll be all right on the night.
I'm answering your point, which you are not listening to, Vernon. Right. And it is very simple. The United States has increased its exports to the European Union faster than the United Kingdom. The United States is not a member of the European Union and doesn't pay a penny in. We are a member and we paid an awful lot of money in. You do not have to be part of a supranational political organisation in order to trade with people. They will do a deal. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. They have a selfish and strategic interest in trading with us. And that will carry on. All this scare stuff they're going to leap into a big, black, terrifying hole is really for the birds. They want to work with us.
I think a lot of the scare stuff that comes from the European Union leaders, and my goodness, you just have to listen to the Today programme every morning. I think there's practically every other EU country's foreign minister has been interviewed, telling us how it would be terrible if we left and what would happen. I think a lot of that is because deep down within the rest of the EU, there are great growths particularly on the left and indeed on the right, which is actually quite worrying, within the European Union, who feeling the same as us, that they want to think of leaving. They don't like the European Union project. And what's upsetting and worrying to the Commission is that they know that if the United Kingdom actually makes this hugely historic decision on June the 23rd, that the whole edifice of this kind of pretend thing with its own union, its own flag, its own national anthem, its own 5 presidents, they can't even make do with one. They are frightened of our democracy. That's really what will happen on June the 23rd. So that's why it's not just good for democracy in this country, it's actually good for the rest of the EU as well.